I covered some men's issues yesterday, so it seems only fair I might cover some ladies' issues today. In yesterday's video, I covered the Jamaican police and the report they made showing the increase in the number of men that are harming themselves and comparing it to the number of women that are doing the same. And we saw that there was quite a bit of disparity there. And it just so happened that today, as I was scrolling through my usual places I scroll through and check some articles, I stumbled upon a very interesting article on a particular publication, Quillette publication. It's a science publication. They talk about biological matters, physics, different science, obviously. And they were speaking about something very interesting. The article was attempting to break down in a scientific way, in a biological way, the questions and the problems that are facing women in the modern day dating scenarios. And there are quite a few of these problems that are facing them. To me, one of the chiefest questions, I think, whenever we talk about mate and finding a mate and who someone wants and partners and family life, I think one of the main parts in it is being honest about what you want. Honestly asking yourself, what do you want? And honestly answering it. Now, there are some problems with that question and answering that question honestly, because one of the changes we've seen in the world as it currently stands is the globalization of socialization. Sounds like something really special and fantastic, but I'm basically talking about social media. And what social media has done is it has allowed, for the first time ever in the human existence, the pressures that we have from our social surroundings are now extended to a global village, to a global size. So while for the history of humanity, everyone that existed up until now, the social pressures that they received would have been from people directly in and around them, their direct circle, their neighbors, their family, in more recent time, maybe their countries, and they'll be following those social pressures. But now we are in such a case where the social pressures we receive are on a much larger scale. And that makes things even a bit more difficult, especially for women. It's a fact that women are the more sociable side. Now, when we say things like this, it's obviously a generalization, and we're speaking in pretty large generalizations here. So obviously many people would fall at different parts inside and outside of these general rules, but it's a general rule. The general norm, if you pick among the masses, this is what you would find on average. So on average, women are generally the more sociable side. Women are more responsive to social pressures. You could see that displayed if you look at fads, and where fads and trends generally pick up faster and change faster also. So that's because of that. Women are generally more responsive to the social pressures. And that's for obvious biological reason, because for the most part, the community side of humanity going through history since time began would have had, for the most part, women at the center of it. So that's understandable, but that creates some problems now when we have this globalization of the same social pressures. What would be happening now is that some women may not be saying exactly what they want, and what they want would be pressured based on what the majority of the online group may want. There's a study on this that I lost. I can't remember where I found it and where I saw it, but it was a very interesting one and very key in making that point. The general idea of it was something along the lines of asking women to list their priority levels of what they want and what they would pursue in life, and then they were asked to list what they think other women would want and where they think other women would have their priorities in life. And you saw that what they actually wanted and what they thought most women wanted was a wildly different thing. I believe the result was something like the vast majority of women held family and that side of life, family, children, etc., at much higher priority levels than they think the other group of women do. So what that is saying is that a lot of women online right now may be having in their mind a view of what they want and an order of what they want that is incongruent or not along the lines of what they think the majority of the other women and other people online may want. And that disparity may have some people pursuing things that if they were to check themselves honestly, they may not like. But I think that is the key to it all. What do you want exactly in life? That's enough of me. Let's see what the article says. Mate selection for modernity. Dating and the process of mate selection have changed. The rise of hookup culture, proliferation of dating apps, and the ever-increasing age of first marriage are evidence of this. This current situation can be summarized along 4 parameters. 1. Increasing female achievement. 2. Growing variability in male status and competence. 3. An evolutionary desire among females to marry up. And 4. Globalization of the sexual marketplace and resultant collapse of local status hierarchies. If this sounds like strange stuff to you, well, bear in mind it is a science magazine, so the language would be more scientific, but trust me, it makes perfect sense, and we'll go through it and you'll see exactly how it lines up and what you could observe in the world when you look out now and what they're talking about from a scientific perspective. There's a lineup there. There's a coinciding of the two. So to break down the 4 parameters they were speaking about, increasing female achievement, that's pretty obvious. More women are getting into the workplace. More women are achieving higher levels in their education and getting better paying jobs. Growing variability in male status and competence. So they're growing variability, so there's a higher amount of variation in the different types of men that may be available. Some men that may be extremely high in status and some men that may be waste men, as we would call them. And 3, an evolutionary desire among females to marry up. This is called hypergamy, meaning that most women tend to marry across and up hierarchies. We described that just now, and that's one of the topics that gets kind of touchy for some people. And 4, the globalization of the sexual marketplace and resultant collapse of local status hierarchies. That's what I was talking about when I was speaking about the globalization of socialization, where now we are having more of a global market. The pond you're fishing in now is a much larger pond when you're fishing for whatever you're fishing for. So going on, chads, dads, and hypergamy. Hypergamy is an evolved sexual strategy where individuals mate with and or marry those most capable of providing long-term security. It is the act of marrying up. Though human males can and do engage in hypergamy, it is a concept and strategy most often attributed to females. It is an artifact born out of raw Darwinian necessity. So, what this is saying is that women tend to marry across and up hierarchies. So what that would be is hierarchies in strength, hierarchies in wealth, hierarchies in status, in power. If a woman is of a certain status in wealth, power, whatever her status is, she may marry a man of equal status or higher status. That isn't just about women being selfish and greedy, as some of the more modern speakers would have some men believe. It's not just a matter of women wanting these selfish, greedy women. It's a matter of survival. Even if you don't want to get into the Darwinian evolutionary side and the science side, think about it in the obvious sense. When you're thinking about these things, think about the habits that would have had to have been developed, not for society as we know it, not for society that is so safe and we're all inside our concrete buildings with metal burglar proof on the outside and police surrounding and spinning every now and again. Don't think about these societies. Think about habits and characteristics that would have had to have been developed when humans were for thousands of years patrolling what we would consider wilderness conditions. And when you are in these conditions and you are a female, you are not ignorant to the fact that you may find yourself in a position, very likely for quite some time, where you would be unable to care and tend for yourself. So obviously the man, the partner you're looking for, you would like to know that he would be able to protect you during that time. You would like to know that he'd be able to provide for you and the future offspring. That's obvious. So the understanding of why women marry or mate across and up hierarchies, or as it's officially called hypergamy, isn't something that's that confusing or even an insult to women. It's an obvious thing. It's protection. And honestly, even in modern times, I wouldn't blame a woman for doing it. Especially if we go back to where I was talking about saying what you want and being clear with what you want and being honest with what you want. If this woman wants a family life and she wants to have a family, then it would make sense that the person she attempts to partner with would be able to support that desire that she so wants. So reading on from there, furthermore, a study of Swedish couples reported that when the wife contributed 80% or more to the total income, the divorce risk was twice as high as when she contributed less than 20%. Curiously, one study also found that men who were not the primary breadwinner, were more likely to use erectile dysfunction medication relative to men that were. So men who aren't the primary breadwinners seem to suffer with erectile dysfunction more. The notion that most women are callous resource extractors is inaccurate. They are not necessarily after resources, but rather the primary predictors of resource acquisition, namely intelligence and hard work. To this extent, researchers analyzing 120 personal dating ads found that education was one of the two strongest predictors of how many responses a man received from women. The other was income. But the common sense tendency of women to seek at least their level or higher out when they're looking for mates becomes very problematic when we have women excelling more than they ever have before. It's lonely at the top. Compared to their male counterparts, young women have the upper hand in education and earning power. Since the 1990s, women have outnumbered men in both college enrollment and college completion rates, reversing a trend that lasted through the 1960s and 70s. In 1960, there were 1.6 males for every female who graduated from a 4-year US college. Compare this to 2003, where there were 1.35 females for every male college graduate. By 2013, 37% of women aged 25 to 29 had at least a bachelor's degree, compared to 30% of men in the same age range. So that's a 7% disparity. Moreover, 12% of women in this age group had a postgraduate or professional degree compared to 8% of men. But it's not just the US, the UK, Panama, Sri Lanka, Argentina, Cuba, Jamaica, that's the Caribbean, and Brunei have some of the highest female to male ratios in higher education. Young women are also out-earning young men. According to data compiled by the Press Association, women between the ages of 22 and 29 typically earn £1,111 more each year compared to males in the same age group. So the wage gap that some people keep talking about is disappearing. In fact, it has reversed in the younger generation. Young women generally, I'm not speaking about in countries where women genuinely have no rights or very few rights. I'm talking about in what is considered the more developed part of the world. The disparity in pay is actually being reversed in the younger generation. More young women are earning more than the young men. And when you combine all of these different factors and combine this now with the fact, this is a fact, that generally speaking, again we're talking in wide generalizations. The entire video speaks in wide generalizations. If anything in this video offends you and you're saying this doesn't pertain to me, well, you are one of the exception to the generalization, and that's fine. It doesn't pertain to you. But generally speaking, most men prefer women younger of age and of a certain look. Beauty has a higher standard in the male selection criteria. So now what you're going to have is the men at the top of the hypergamy hierarchy, the men that are at least equal or higher than just about every woman's level, they would only be looking for a specific type of woman. And bear in mind, for that man there, quite at the top of his level, men marry across or meet across and down these hierarchies. So he has no problem if this woman is making less money than him. Generally speaking, as we saw, it seems like in relationships where the woman makes less money, in some cases, at least in Sweden, we saw that that actually causes there to be a lesser rate of divorce. So this man at the top would be looking for all these characteristics. Now, that's not even just the problem. A woman who finds herself at a higher performing level, she's educated, she has a job, she has a reasonable salary. In order to reach that level in the first place, it would have required an investment of time. That investment of time would have begun in her youth. You see, the exchange for education and attainment, at least in that sphere, goes something like you exchange your youth, You sacrifice your youth and the younger years in order to attain this level, because that's the time you go to school, that's the time you beat the books and study hard and rise the corporate ladder. But remember, we just pointed out that these high status men, the high status just sounds so corny and cheesy, but that's probably one of the best descriptions. So these men at the top of their hierarchies, they're looking for young, youthful. The education level to these men isn't as consequential, regardless of what you see some men say online where they're talking about they're looking for a queen to stand at their side and build an empire with. The reality is, when you look at the statistical evidence of that, it's not actually true. Many of these men that talk about they're looking for a queen to build an empire with may go on to build an empire and then leave this queen that they built the empire with and find someone young. Look at Jeff Bezos. Look at Bill Gates. They aren't married to the woman they built the empire with. And almost surely, if you look at the woman they would select now, it would be a younger woman. So we're having a generation of women who did the right thing. They listened to the parents, they listened to those in authority that told them to go out there and get an education and make yourself successful. And they are successful in that realm. But many of them are now looking to the familial side of life and attempting to become successful in that side and recognizing it isn't as easy to do. And maybe they're already in a position where they may have already lost out on some of the benefits that they may not have even known have passed them already. The writer of this article is a mathematician. He's a math lecturer, I believe, and he went on to write an equation to display how, in fact, as women raise in their level, they decrease their options, and as men raise in their level, they increase their options. He wrote a formula to attempt to show the disconnect between what women want and what they receive, and how it seems like the more demanding a woman gets in her choices, the less choices she actually has for her. As women climb the corporate ladders, as they climb the education ladders, they want a more specific type of mate. They become more particular in their rule breakers and things that they must have and things that would quash the entire discussion. But ironically, as they increase in that level and have more of these demands, they actually decrease the amount of males, the amount of mates that are available to them. Tell me what you think. Do you agree with this science? Do you think that this science bears out the truth in, as we see reality reveal itself to us when you look around in this world? Does this seem to be reality to you? Does this add up? Or does it seem like some joke science or someone just trying to pull a fast one on us? Tell me what you think. Drop a comment. I'd like to see your comments, and don't forget to click that like button if you haven't done that yet. Subscribe also with the notification bell just so you make sure I know when the videos come out, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next video.
Feel the music, rising with the time.